Hi, this is Charlotte with Campus TV. I'm joined today by Dominic Tristram, the prospective Bath MP for the Green Party. Thank you for being here today, Dominic.
Thank you for having me.
How do you feel the hustings went for you today?
Well, it's difficult for me to tell really, because I always get sort of caught up in it, and you get a bit of a buzz and a bit of adrenaline flow going. There's the bit at the start when you're doing this sort of 5-minute talk, and that bit does sometimes seem to go on forever or for a very short amount of time. But then when the questions start coming, it's bang, 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 and then the hour's gone, or hour and a half, or whatever it was. See, I don't even know, because it goes, and I just get a good feeling about it. I like the interaction with people.
Great. No, it was definitely a very interesting talk. Now, as you mentioned in your hustings, the Green Party is actually the most popular party in the UK with the youth at the moment. And you also mentioned that you heard about a Bath Impact poll that mentioned that here at Bath University, it is also the most popular party. So I just wanted to know how you plan to keep that support and maintain it as we head towards the general elections.
Well, we have a lot of very enthusiastic volunteers who are students at Bath University. We do suffer slightly from the fact that we don't have a society here. Bath University does seem to have a strange policy where it can only have a finite number of societies, and you have to wait for one to die or disappear before you can make another one. And I understand there's a queue of people waiting to make societies. So we don't have a society. It would really help us if we did. My feeling is every political party should have a society. I think it's only right when it comes to democratic voice in the university. But then that's just my, I'm not Bath University, I'm not, who am I to tell them what to do? But we do have people who are very willing to be at the university and talk to students and leaflet and canvas and all these other things. It's just made slightly more difficult for not having a society.
Yeah. Great. Well, and in Bath, you also plan to make sure all new housing developments have at least 50% social housing within them. Do you not think that this will affect the property market in Bath and maybe hinder certain local estate agents and have a negative impact on them?
Well, it depends what you mean by the property market, because the property that's required most in Bath is low-cost housing, social housing, and affordable housing. We don't really like the term affordable housing because that could mean anything to all sorts of people. But what we definitely are short of is social housing. Bath suffers from massively expensive property compared to incomes. So not many people, some people obviously can afford housing, but people certainly now, even graduates with good jobs, find it difficult to afford anywhere. So there is a need for low cost and social housing. If it means that the property market is slightly distorted, and I guess by that you could mean people with second homes or landlords, then I would take that hit.
Okay. And you also aim to reduce the density of HMOs in Bath. Do you not think this will affect the ability of students to live in conveniently located places with purpose-built transport, such as Oldfield Park?
Well, what we want to see really is, we don't want to be prescriptive when it comes to where students live, because we understand that students want to live near other students, because who wouldn't? I mean, it's a nice community. What we want to avoid is the tension that can crop up between students and locals. We don't think that that's fair a lot of the time, as in students get a lot of stick for things that I don't think is really their fault. What is the fault of it a lot of the time are their landlords, who don't give them the facilities they need, such as somewhere to store recycling bins and rubbish and that sort of thing. What we would like to see, as well as students distributed a bit more widely over the city, is much stricter controls on the landlords and how they actually maintain the properties. So actually a lot of those problems disappear. Now, we do like the idea of students living more, across more of the city, because I think it's good for the city, to be honest. If people lived nearer students, they'd understand them more, and instead of just going, oh, we're not going to Oldfield Park, it's for the students, they might think, well, the students are a valuable part of the community, and we like living near them, and we like the sort of energy it gives areas, and actually the support it gives local shops and that sort of thing. And just as an example, where I live in Odddown, it's one of the cheaper areas in Bath. It's perfect for students, but for whatever reason, it's not a particularly fashionable student hangout, or a lot of students don't want to live up there. And that's a shame, because actually there's a lot more space up there than Oldfield Park. There's, houses are bigger and there's places to put cars, and it would be better for the students and better for the people in Bath if more students lived in places like Oldtown.
Okay. And the Nottingham Declaration aims to cut 60% of carbon emissions by 2050. How do you plan to do this locally here in Bath?
Well, not just me, thankfully, but obviously this would be the local council more than me as a prospective MP. But what we could do for starters is have council buildings being zero carbon. I mean, it's entirely doable today. My domestic energy supplier is 100% renewable, good energy. So it's possible for not just houses, but people like organisations like the council to just have zero carbon energy, and that's a huge amount of carbon that's gone already. Then I think also there should be a huge push for all council buildings to have things like solar panels on top, and where it's appropriate, other forms of renewable energy. It's just a matter of the will, because actually it's perfectly doable. And also the cost isn't that much. I mean, my electricity costs about the same as anyone else's electricity.
Now, just moving on to kind of more national issues. In a recent interview, the party leader Natalie Bennett is quoted as saying that she's in favour of a European Union referendum, but she would still be campaigning to remain a member of the EU.
Yeah.
Is this not a contradiction of ideas?
Not really. I mean, it's not just Natalie Bennett who says this. This is party policy. We are in favour of an EU referendum, because we think actually if you don't have one, then this just will be rolling on for years and years. There'll be parties like UKIP and some of the Conservatives saying, oh, we need a referendum, and it will just never stop. So that's one reason why it would be good to have a referendum. But we actually are fans of Europe, but it does need reform. So a lot of the things that Europe is criticised for are the things we like. Say environmental protection, and protection in your workplace, and all those other things that, protection of animals, animal welfare, lots of really good things that Europe have done. What we're not a fan of is the fact that a lot of the EU, the way it's set up is to enable free trade and free markets and unrestricted markets. We would actually want to scale that back a bit. We wouldn't want Europe to, as it does currently, if you're a public sector body and you put work out to tender, you're not allowed to favour certain ethical, let's say, or public sector providers. Now we would like to see it change so actually you can favour people who have good social, ethical or social terms in their contracts. So there's things we would want to do, but when we say reform the EU, what we definitely don't want to do is what the government is saying. It's like they want to remove your worker protections in a reformed EU. We want to reform the EU to actually increase worker protections and environmental protection and remove things which are harmful for workers.
So what are the Green Party's general ideas on sort of immigration? Obviously there's the rise of UKIP at the moment. There's a lot of issues around immigration, and that's the main reason for their saying dropping out of the EU. What do the Green Party think about that?
Well, of course, when UKIP say they don't like immigration, so they want to leave the EU, realistically, they also say they aren't against immigration. They want some points-based system or something. So really, what are they saying? Nobody really knows exactly what this points-based system would, how many people it would allow in, or who it would allow in. We're quite clear. We want to stay in the EU. One of the things about the EU is free movement. So any party or any group of people who want us to stay in the EU realistically can't change what happens within Europe. We want to work towards a world where people don't have to migrate because they want to look after their families. We want to live in a world where there isn't the abusive relationship we have with them now, where we pretty much outsource all of our nasty jobs or polluting jobs to other poorer countries for them to do, and we get all the benefits. And of course they want to leave those countries and go somewhere where they don't have to live with all that stuff and get better pay. We would like to see a world where that is just less of an incentive. That's a long-term vision, admittedly, but really we're talking about the long term, because given that we don't want to leave the EU, and really we're not going to leave the EU, I mean the only UKIP are pushing for it, what is our alternative? We are pretty much we are criticised for saying we want completely open borders. That's not true at all. I mean our policy is basically to do more or less what we do now in the short term. So it's no worse than now. And in the long term, we want to work for a world where we don't have to worry about people desperate to get in to feed their families.
Now, the Green Party is campaigning for an introduction of universal citizens' income,
yes.
Which is estimated to cost around £240 billion a year. Where do you plan to find this money?
Well, it's easy to say, come up with these figures and say, well, how are you going to be able to pay £70 a week to everyone or whatever? And actually, what people don't realise is it replaces a whole load of other benefits. The main way we're going to get that money is there won't be a tax-free personal allowance anymore on income, because basically everyone will be given the citizen's income, which is enough to live on, and then all money you earn above that is taxed. So suddenly we're going to get Yeah, we've got a huge saving to the exchequer. We're also going to get rid of things like income support and tax credits, all these other things, because you won't need them, because actually you've got enough to live on. And when you factor in the billions saved in administrative costs, because the cost of giving everyone X money rather than trying to work out how much of all these other benefits you might get, it's much cheaper to just say, here's your money and get on with it. Now, not everyone is going to get the citizen's income, because obviously some people already have a pension that is pension. So pensioners, for example, have income that is basically given to them. So we would exclude things like pensioners, and child benefit also is already a sort of citizen's income. So some of that money is already being paid out. So it's not we're just multiplying the number of people in the country by how much we want to give them. Actually, it turns out to be more or less cost neutral.
Well, unfortunately, that was all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for being with us. You've been watching Campus TV. Don't forget to tune in next week for the interview with the Labour Party prospective candidate, which is Ollie Middleton. Thanks for watching.